Hi, this is PD at BurgZerg Arcade at BurgZergArcade.com, and this is tutorial 169, or part 11 of our changing room. So let's go ahead and open up Unity, and we'll also open up Model Develop. Now, where we left off in the last one, we had just got the positioning for our little GUI button to swap our hair, and the index is increasing. The next thing I wanted to go over was actually creating the function that we're going to call that actually instantiates the hair for you. So it's going to be pretty close to this here. So I'm just going to find that function. There we go. And I'm just going to cut and paste that whole thing. And I like to keep it together with the other one. Now if you notice, we're doing a lot of cutting and pasting, and a lot of the functions are constantly repeating the same, well, basic functionality. When I bring this over to the character generation scene, and we start implementing it there, I'm going to implement it different, and I'm going to refactor everything so that we don't have so much code being repeated. But I wanted to keep doing it this way here to show you the basic thought process I have of just getting everything working. And then when we implement it into our character generation scene, you'll see how I go about refactoring things to make it a little more efficient. But that's a little ways off. Let's get this here done. So I've gone ahead and cut and paste this in, and we're not going to call it Instantiate Weapon Model. I'm just going to call it Instantiate Hair Mesh. And of course, I'll paste that name up here, uncomment it, and I'm just going to go through and change what needs to be changed. So the first thing will be this hair mesh index. So we're going to take a look to see if the hair mesh index is greater than our CA weapon mesh length, and we don't want the weapon mesh length anymore. We want the hair mesh. So I'm just going to cut and paste the hair mesh part in. And if it is greater than the length -1, then we're going to set it to 0. Now we're checking here to see if our weapon mount that we have exposed on our base character, if its child count is greater than 0. Well, we're not going to look for the weapon mount anymore. What we're going to look for is the hair mount. So let's go in here and see, there was the weapon mount. Here's our hair mount. So we'll just come in here. We'll paste in the hair mount. And if it is, then we'll just iterate through the amount of children we have, and we're just going to destroy them all. Now, of course, you really shouldn't ever have more than one hair on your character at a time, but just in case you do, putting it in a loop isn't really losing any efficiency. So let's go through here. Now we're adding the weapon mesh index, which we don't want the weapon mesh, we want the hair mesh. And we don't want the weapon index, we want the hair index. And I'm kind of going over it really slowly here just to show you just how repetitive we've become and how much of the same code we're reusing. But let's just keep going through. We don't have the weapon mount, we have the hair mount. And we'll just keep going through. We instantiate as an object. It really doesn't matter what the variable is called, because this is the only time we ever use it. So we're going to go through, and we're not going to have a weapon mount as the parent. We want the hair mount. And we'll set the transform rotation to be equal to 0 to start off with. And that pretty much should be everything. To start off with, we're going to want to call this function up at the top in our start, and I'll call it right before, or sorry, right after the weapon. So let's go ahead and save that off. We'll head back into Unity. We'll let it recompile, make sure there's no errors, and there does not appear to be. So I'm just going to clear the console, and we'll start this up. And we'll take a look. You don't really see the hair there, but you do see them over here. That's a little too close. You can see the texture on his skin. These are supposed to be eyebrows. They're not even close to the right spot. So, well, actually, before I stop it, let me check my mount points here. So I'm going to click on the eyebrows, and that'll bring me all the way down to my hair mount. And I actually think I have some mounts mixed up here. Yes, my mouth mount is actually supposed to be my hair mount, and my hair mount was supposed to be my mouth mount, or just an extra mount. So let me stop that off, and I'm going to pull another character in. I'm going to have to do both, so I'll do the muscular guy first. And I just have to change these mount points. So I'm just going to click on the hair mount one over here, which will open them up down to there. And of course, if I click the hair mount, I meant to zoom in, not out. It's like a second helmet mount. So I'm just going to call this empty mount for now. And the mouth mount, I want to change to hair mount. So if I select the root again, we have empty mount up here. I'm just going to take my hair mount, put it up there into the hair mount, save that off. I'm just going to cancel them now, or delete them, and I'm going to drag the fat guy on. And I'll do the same thing. Click on his hair mount, come down here, select it, just rename it empty mount. And the reason why I'm calling it empty mount is right now I don't really have a use for it. If you notice, the empty mount and the helmet mount are in the exact same spot. So at certain points in the game, you might want to have two things mounted to the same spot. Right now, I cannot think of an instance for this particular character, so I don't want to get rid of the mount, because I do may want to use it later on. I'm just going to leave it called empty mount, so right now I know that it's a mount point, but I have no use for it right now. But I do know I want this to be my hair mount. And I'll select the root, drag the hair mount into the hair mount spot, replacing the empty mount. Make sure I have the root, there we go, the root selected. Hit apply and quickly check over here just to make sure they're set up. So the hair mount's hair mount on the fat guy. And on the muscular guy, the hair mount is the hair mount. Great. We'll get rid of the fat guy. And let's just start it back up. So we started up. I'm going to find my guy over here. We'll zoom in. And we'll zoom up. And it appears to still be in the same area. So let me just take a look here. It is showing up, and I am still getting a mouth mount. And I should not be getting a mouth mount. It should be an empty mount. So let me stop that and check the muscular guy one more time. So I'll just drop him right here. And we'll open him up. And remember, you wanted to see the errors. So we'll just leave these in. So we're at spine up. We'll go to the head. Hair, which is not supposed to be hair, which is supposed to be empty. I might have just forgot to reapply it. It would not be the first and probably not the last. And this is now the hair mount. Select, well, I always call this the base, but I don't like calling it the base because I actually have a part of the skeleton called base, but we'll just call it the root. Select the root to make sure you have it, the exposed parts over here. Drag the hair in. Make sure you still have it selected. Hit apply. And then I'm going to delete. But I am going to look again before I bother instantiate. We'll just instantiate it. If it's wrong, we'll find out right away. There we go. And as you see, the eyebrows are in the right spot now. Let's go to the next one. The next one just adds, if we select it, is eyebrows with full head of hair. It's not a perfect fit, but to be honest, for the quality that I'm going for, that's pretty good. And the next one, well, it's a balding guy. We'll go to the next one. And I'm not really sure what the difference is between that and the first, or second, I guess would be. So let me just look here. We have this one. Okay, the other one has long hair. So if we go to 3, it's a bit longer. And with 4, it's a balding guy with long hair. And 2 was a balding guy with short hair. So let's stop that. And let's go ahead and create a new script that will offset a mesh that doesn't actually line up right. So I'm going to leave this hair one open. I'm just going to come down to scripts. And I'm just going to throw it in the main script folder for now. And I'll just create a new C# script. And I'm going to call this script Mesh Offset. Now the purpose of this mesh is you're going to attach it to things that are attached to your character, and it's going to allow you to assign some offsets for a mesh so that when you equip it, even though it places it perfectly on the mount point, sometimes you're going to want to have it repositioned a little bit, maybe a little bit more to the left, or whatever you need to get it positioned right. So let's go ahead and open it up. And I'm going to go ahead and rename the class. And I believe that's what I called it, Mesh Offset. Yes, I did. And right at the start, I'm going to create a public vector3. And I'm going to call this pos offset. And of course, that's for the positional offset. And I'm going to save that off. Let me come down and shrink this up a bit. Now you can attach this to any mesh that you have that you're going to be attaching to your character. So for instance, hair. Let's say, oh, I don't know, let's say hair 1.5 didn't fit right. So let's start it up. I'm going to take a look at it in the game, and it will be my third one. Sorry, it'll be my fourth one. Yes, the fourth. Not quite. These all have a full head of hair. Let me just take a look here. So they do need to be offset a bit. No, they don't. If you look, see how it's flattened out? Let's reset the position. That's probably, see, when I originally created the script, this is the problem I was having. When I was trying to put them on my character, they never seemed to fit right. So I was constantly scaling and everything else. But now that I've got a script that adds them, it does actually add them in a spot that looks good. But let's say for some reason I wanted it to fit like this. We're working with it's hair 1.5. So let me stop this. I'm going to grab hair 1.5. I'm just going to drag it into my scene. And I'm going to attach that new script we just created to it. So mesh offset. It tells me it's going to lose a prefab. That's fine. I'm going to reassign it after I've applied the changes. So if I look at it up here in the prefab again, it should have this script attached. So let's start it up. And I'm going to go to that mesh, which is mesh 1.4. Just let me take a look at some of these full head of hair ones. Yeah. Okay. And let's say I wanted to move it up. So I'm going to start off by clearing my position. Those values in here were so small that they're really not going to make a difference anyway. So let's move this up a bit. I don't know, let's say this is the position I needed to get it into to get it right. Let's say this was the starting position it started in, and I have to move it to get it to the right position. I can now come up here and go, oh, look, here's how much I had to move it. And if you look here, you'll notice that the axes are different. Red is X, which is still right. Up and down is the green one, which is Y. And that one's pointing outwards. And of course, Z is blue, which normally points forward and back. But in this case, it's actually pointing up. So I ended up moving it along the Z axis. So let's go over here and take a look at the Z axis. I'm actually going to cut and paste that. And I could put it right in here, but it's not going to save. So what I'm going to do is stop it. Take the prefab that I have sitting here. I'm just going to come over and paste it in there. And then I'm going to reassign it. So we'll apply, and I'll look at it here, and there we go. And of course, if I start it up, it doesn't do anything because it doesn't know about it yet. So we'll go look at it. Okay, now let's actually have our script take a look to see if we have a mesh offset attached to this mesh, and if so, offset it. So we're going to come back into MonoDevelop, and there's nothing else I'm actually going to do with this. There are some others that you might want to do. You might want to play with the rotation and the scale of the item as well, and they'll work pretty much the exact same way as the position does. Well, let's go back into our change room and let's look at this where we're putting the hair on. So we instantiate it here, and then we parent it, and we zero out its rotation. Now afterwards, I'm going to take a look to see if it has that mesh offset, and if it does, I want to get the values from it. So I'm going to create a new mesh offset, and I'm just going to call it MO for Mo, and that's going to be equal to, well, w.getComponent, and the component I am looking for will be mesh offset, and then I'm going to check to see if I have it. So if MO is equal to null, I'm just going to return. So we just get out of here. So that means it doesn't have a mesh offset attached to it. But if it does have a mesh offset, I'm just going to throw out a quick debug log just to let me know that it did find one. We have a mesh offset, and I want to position it according to its mesh offset. So let's go ahead and take the item. So we'll want to get its transform. The item is W, and we'll want to grab its transform.position, and we're going to make it equal to mo.positional offset. We'll just save that off. Let's go back into Unity. Let it recompile, clear everything out, and let's just hit start. So the first three should not have any. I'm just going to center in on him a bit more. And let's just start going through them. The first one, the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. We have a mesh offset. Now we'll see that it's disappeared. Let's zoom back in. Let's figure out where it is. So we're going to grab our character and let's just start opening them up. And spline up, head, and we're going to look for the hair spot. And if we click on the hair and come over to our scene view and hit F, it's way over here. Now it's moving because it's still attached to the head, but it's going by its world space. So let's try to switch that over to local space. And of course, it's not too bad. We just use dot local position. You also have local rotation and local scale. So let's save that off and let's give it another try here. As you notice, I still have the other hair in the background. I'm going to leave it there in case I want to make any more adjustments. So let's actually zoom in on this character again. Okay, I'm going to click off of them and let's go through. So we know the first three are okay. And there's the fourth one, and if you were to click on it, you would notice that its position is the same as my offset. Now, of course, you can also do this for the other axes if you want. And if you have an item that does not need an offset, just don't have one. Now, I'm actually going to have to take this one that we have down here and remove the component from it, and then reassign the prefab. And we'll hit apply. And well, just to make sure, I'm going to grab here. It does not have it anymore, so I'll get rid of it. And let's just make sure nothing funky is happening. And there we go. Anyway, that's a quick, easy way to have some sort of offset for the meshes that you'll be attaching to your character, just in case they don't always come in exactly the way you want it. The alternative is loading it up into a 3D modeling program and playing around with its pivot point. But this is probably a little bit easier, probably a little bit quicker as well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. We've covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover in the actual change room itself. We've learned how to attach meshes, remove meshes, change the materials on meshes, and how to adjust meshes to position them the way we want them. Now this one's almost 20 minutes already, but I don't really want to start another one just for the few little things that are left. So what I'm actually going to do is take my Instantiate Hair mesh. When we switch between the muscular and fat models, we want to make sure that it's called. So I'm going to come down to the very bottom, which is where we were doing the changeover to the different models. And right below we have Instantiate Weapon Model. I'm just going to make sure that we're instantiating the hair model as well. So let's save that off and give it a quick whirl to make sure that the hair stays between the two different model types. So I'll start off. We have the muscular guy, and he has eyebrows. And of course, if we switch to the fat guy, he has eyebrows. I've not bothered to keep check here if I'm destroying everything properly. It should be on the mesh changes. As you see, the materials go up in the meshes, but they always go back down to the right one. Mostly because we have this resources.unload unused assets. But let's go ahead and keep changing the hair. Let's go with that 4, and we'll check one more time, and there we go. And of course, the weapon itself should also be changing. I've only got a few models, I think, on this one. But anyway, there we go. That covers pretty much everything you're going to need to know to be able to customize your character. And I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye-bye.